Today, we're just gonna go through some programs that are available to help farmers purchase equipment. So we're gonna start off with Sonia with the Agency of Ag with their CEAP program. The deadline for that's coming up soon. And then we also have Betsy McGavisk talking about the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board programs, and Tom Akin with the NRCS. Thank you.
Good. Well, for those of you who made it, hopes other people will hear the message later once they get done chopping or whatever they've got going on today on this beautiful day. So yes, I'm Sonia. I work for the Agency of Agriculture. And I'd say we probably have, between us and VHCB, have funded like a lot of conservation equipment in the state. The CEAP program, the Capital Equipment Assistance Program, has been running for, I don't know, Nina would know, like 5 or 6 years now, and has funded like 20 to 30 pieces of conservation equipment each year for that time period. So the CEAP program offers up to 90% cost share on conservation equipment, which is a lot. Like that's almost the full price of the equipment, but there is a cap depending on the equipment type and the equipment purpose. And that ranges between $30,000 and $60,000, kind of depending on the like benefit that we see to the state. And when the legislature gave us money to run this program, they basically said it's like equipment primarily for water quality improvements on your farm. And then there's also some other benefits that we can support, including decreasing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing costs of manure application. But the primary focus is on this like reduction of surface runoff. So kind of within that overarching goal of the program, we have the various equipment types we have funded are precision ag, right? Accurately observing, monitoring, and responding to field variability, and kind of especially when that helps you update your NMP, use your NMP, and like better manage nutrients on your farm. Conservation tillage, so planting annual crops less intensely than you were doing previously. Cover crop equipment, so that's helping you increase or improve the cover crop planting and germination on your farm. Waste management, which is waste and nutrient management improvements, nutrient application efficiency improvements, etc. And then feed management, which is primarily focused on reduction of impacts from silage leachate. So if you have like improper or not, if your current feed management is not quite doing what it should be doing and you're seeing a lot of silage leachate, sometimes, you know, transitioning more to a baler wrapper system can, you know, decrease that leachate. But this year we're expanding that a little to also think about kind of forage management on your farm and reducing imports of feed. So it used to be that you need to kind of have a problem to be able to apply in that category. Now we're opening it up a little bit more to, you know, being able to manage your and create your own feed better on your operation. So this is coming from a fact sheet we have online, and basically the cap in the different categories changes kind of relative to the general cost of that equipment. Generally, a precision ag system on its own is a lot less expensive than a manure injection toolbar, so that kind of adjusts like that, and also just depending on, you know, how much benefit we're seeing water quality wise from different pieces of equipment. There are some examples on here. These are types of equipment that we've funded in the past. It's not like the only type of equipment we would ever fund. It's just some examples of applications we've seen and would definitely consider. I've been answering a lot of questions about, you know, I have this very specific innovative idea and would that be eligible? So you're always welcome to reach out to me if that's, you know, a question you have. But generally, I'd say to remember that the, you know, water quality focus is where we're at. So as long as you can tell us why it's going to improve the nutrient management on your farm, we'll take your application, we'll read through it. I will say the CEAP program has been relatively competitive. So over the last year, we awarded almost $1 million, but people asked for almost 2 million. So that was about half that we were able to, half of applicants we were able to support, which isn't too bad for almost 90% paid equipment. And yeah, I'll add to that too, that we did get some toolbars that we paid 60,000 for. I think the smallest award last year was 6,000 for some precision ag. The year before that, we put out like 3,000 for some, small farm no-till. So, there's a huge range of people coming to us with different things. So I'm going to get out of here if I can for a second. So this is our web page for I'll see. I think that's sharing.
It's trying to Zoom, but not turn into the room for no good reason.
There you go. So if you're trying to find this program online, I recommend going to agriculture, or you can Google it. Okay, so if you Google State of Vermont Agency of Ag, or otherwise get to our website, all of our funding opportunities are here in this funding opportunities tab. So I highly recommend, CEAP is here, but there's a whole bunch else down there. So this will get you to all of the different grant programs that we run and how to apply, who to contact about each one. CEAP is up here with a nice picture of the, I don't know what that is, grain drill maybe. So if you click here, this will get, and all of the information I'm telling you today is on here, right? So this is who's eligible, this is what the categories are, and this is how to apply, and we'll get to that later. But I just wanted to show you all now that what we're going through today is all online, and we do have a fact sheet that will open in your browser. And so all of that information, that's that application. And we did bring the application with us as well today, but all of this table is right in here, and this all talks a little bit more about what you can apply for. Okay, back to my other screen. I think so. I'm on screen 2 now. So I think Zoom has got it. Okay, yeah, so you can go to funding opportunities, or we also under water quality assistance programs. Those are the water quality specific ones. So there's been a couple of examples of that we've written up in the past. So in 2019, we bought LF Herchebys and Sons, a manure injection toolbar and system. So we wrote this up to kind of show that project. And then a couple years ago, we bought the Hertzberg farm that's down in Addison County. They were one of the small farms who came to us for a no-till squash planter on their veggie operations. So again, a range of different equipment. As we go through, I think there's been photos on the side of various types of other things we've bought, like this nice HSN grain drill for grass hayland planting. Where we're at now with the program is the applications did open in the beginning of September, and they are due in a couple weeks, November 1st. So if you're here and interested, we can help you apply. And I know the conservation districts generally are able to help with applications as well, as is the state office program people. And then we're anticipating putting awards out in February, which would involve, enable farms to buy once they hear back with their award. It would enable you to buy over the winter to be ready to use the equipment next summer. Next field season. So to apply, there's 3 things you need to have, or 2 things you really need to have when you apply. The first of those is really the quote, right? Go out, think of what you want to buy, go out, try to figure out how much it's going to cost and get a quote for it. And that allows us to, when we're looking at applications, kind of understand the cost of your application relative to everyone else's. So we do kind of look at, how big's the impact and how much money is it costing? So, if it's a cheaper piece of equipment, that might actually help you out. And then the second part is a questionnaire, which we'll talk a little bit about. And then you have the option to have a letter of support. And so the letter of support, it says they should not be clearly biased. That means maybe not your dealer who says, yeah, like this farmer totally should buy the equipment on my lot. I really want to get rid of it. Try to get it from someone who supports the water quality and the, improvement on your farm, and your, says, hey, he's been doing a good job. She's been really managing her land well. This is going to help get to the next level, would be my recommendation related to that. Yeah, Ken.
How do you guys quotes? Some of the projects that I did last summer with the changing prices on supplies and materials, we actually had to go in and amend some contracts because of the big price increases. How do you guys handle that when a farmer goes and gets a quote and then waiting for their application to be approved, and then you go back to the dealer and whoops, there's a change? What kind of guarantees does the farmer need to bring to that?
Do you have a comment? Okay, yeah. So the question is that there's been a lot of price volatility in recent years, and when you're looking at a quote and writing up a grant, what flexibility is there down the road when the farmer actually goes to purchase? I'd say, generally speaking, we have written grant agreements based on the quote. So, that point in time, and that's because we're ranking according to, compared costs. That said, we do allow for and consider amendments, a little bit later if the price goes up within some degree of reason.
So are you saying there's an opportunity to reapply for more?
I'm saying that we would probably, when we write the quote, we round up a little bit anyway. We'll just have, especially last year, we rounded up more than we usually did. And then we wrote agreements. We didn't actually see last year that many farms come to us and say this isn't going to work at this price. So we didn't have to do a lot of amendments, but in the past we have occasionally, farmers will write to us and say, hey, I have this grant award for $3,500 based on my quote. Now this equipment's gone up 10,000. Can you add 3,000 more in? And we kind of consider those on a case-by-case basis, thinking through, okay, well, if we'd known it was that expensive, would we have still been willing to fund this back in November when we were reading it for the first time? So basically that's the process. Is it's kind of we round up everyone a little bit, and it is important to note that we do pay based on your final invoice. So this quote is how we write the grant. So we say this is how much money you're eligible for, and then you get your award. We'll talk about that later. You get your award, you go to buy it, you pay for it, and you bring us the receipt, and then we pay 90% up to the amount of your agreement. So some people have gotten really big awards and managed to find something used that was going to work for them, and then we end up writing them a smaller check, but then the portion that they're paying for is also less. So Yeah. Mhm. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. It's what? So yeah, the question was, if you get a quote for used equipment, do you have to wait to put your money down until you have an award? And the answer is yes. And the implication of that is that it might be gone. So I'd say when we're looking at used, we often like to see like a couple of quotes, so you know there's like more than one out there at that price. You know, if you're buying from a John Deere dealership, like, you know, there's going to be another one of those somewhere else. Yeah.
So if you're looking to get a grain drill and you submit a quote for a sunflower drill, and that drill is not available once you get the grant, you can go and shop a different piece of equipment. The important thing is that you have the grant paperwork in hand before you purchase, so you know exactly what the expected reimbursement is going to be and how much out of pocket you're going to be looking at covering yourself.
And I think that we kind of do it that way too, to protect farmers, because the worst case scenario would be you go buy this piece of equipment you didn't really want that much, assuming you're going to get paid, and then something terrible happens with the paperwork and you're no longer able to get that grant, and then you're out however many $1,000s, and that is awful. So the reason we make you have your paperwork signed first is so that worst case scenario wouldn't happen.
I guess would a workaround be to get a quote for a more expensive piece of equipment?
That would be a workaround, but then you might rank it out less well. But that is possible. Yeah, that is a workaround. Yeah. Yeah. Or I think some people just say, like, you know, I'm only going to look at new for my quote, and I'm going to, you know, see then if I can find used later. So that's the quote. The questionnaire is kind of going back to, like, we get 40, whatever, 30 identical applications for grain drills every year. And then we're trying to choose who to fund. And, you know, we do look at, you know, price per acre, all those things, but, you know, there's a little bit more to these than that, right? We don't just want to pay for the people who got the cheapest piece of equipment or that, like, had the most acres. So that's why we have this questionnaire, to try to understand a little bit more about, you know, your operation, you know, what you're going to be doing, what you're doing now, how this is going to help you improve, like what, you know, what improvements you've made in the past that have gotten you to where you are now, just to, like, help our reviewers get a better understanding of, you know, what you're doing. So it kind of takes you back to, like, high school English a little bit, but just try to help, you know, us understand what you're doing. And also, you know, again, remember, like, what we're funding for, I think, is important when you're putting that together, is, like, really trying to make a case for how this is having that water quality and climate benefit. Another part of the questionnaire is just kind of trying to you fill out this table if you're applying for cover crop tillage or manure injection, to, like, help us understand what you're doing now and what this is going to be in the future. Just knowing that was a question a lot of our reviewers had in past years, is like, okay, well, you know, what's going on now? They say they're going to do 200 acres drilled next year. Is that more? Is that less? You know, what were they broadcasting? Like, people just really, this is a very, like, manual review process, unlike some of our applications. So we do like to know that, get a little bit of an idea of that. Here's some examples of quotes we got last year. You know, take them all as long as they have a price. I will say we can't pay for shipping. So that's something to know about if you're, you know, picking something up in Pennsylvania. And then once you have all that gathered, which I do first, you can submit the application online, or you can submit a PDF. Both of those are on our webpage. So if you hit, if you fill it out online, it just submits automatically. Otherwise, you mail it to me through the mail or online. And I think the districts could help with that as well. We are asking for the UEI preemptively, but it is not required for this program. But it is, if you have one, start thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is an optional, the question 9 UEI is an optional question right now for this year. Nina Gage, talk to us about UEIs.
UEI.
For the first time ever.
It basically replaced what we used to use for this program called capital dollars. With federal funds, there's a lot of other strings. Part of that is if we're in the process of getting a determination right now as to whether recipients are considered one thing versus another. If they're one thing, they need a UI. If they're not, they don't need a UI. So we should know in the next, ideally we should have known last month, but we're going to find out the final response in another.
So basically it's a number kind of like your social security number or your, employer ID, but it's a different, entirely different number that you have to apply for with the federal government to get, to be able to use certain types of federal money. Yeah. Anyway, but don't worry about it now, but and the districts will be in charge of helping you all out if and when that happens, but it's kind of a giant pain in everyone's rear end right now because we got all this federal money, which is great, and we can spend it, but it's coming with a lot of strings attached. So yeah, do not worry about that question for now, but that is a thought in the future. So if you apply, what happens? So the first thing to think about, and this is when you're applying, is when you apply, you tell us the quote, right? The price, and then you're also telling us how many acres you're going to use it on. That does go into the grant agreement, and that's going to be an expectation of the award, because when we were looking at it and we chose you over someone else, we were saying, oh, that's because this farm's going to go do much more cover cropping than its neighbor. So that does go into the award, and there is a reporting requirement year on year that you would do that. So just keep that in mind as you're applying. People have often tended to think that maybe they want to be pretty conservative in these numbers to, again, the balance between ranking out and also being reasonably able to expect this. This example is pulled out of someone's grant, and you do see a lot of times you see people ramping up. But they're not so sure how they're going to do year one, but they're pretty confident that by the end of the season, or by the end of the grant, they'll probably be doing, maxing out their acres or whatever they're going to do. So we've been using DocuSign, which has made my life a lot easier, and some farms really like it. Some farms struggle a little, but that's okay. We can still send PDFs. So basically you would get, if you were awarded, first you'd get an email from me saying, congratulations, you've been awarded. Please don't buy it yet. Finish the paperwork. And then that'll come to you on DocuSign. So you'll get an email, you'll just hit review, and then you'll click 3 more buttons, and that'll help you sign it. You can do that on your phone. So some people like that. Again, if it doesn't work out, you would email me back and I'd help find you a different way to sign. Another requirement of the program is to submit a certificate of insurance so that we know that our equipment that we bought you, if you crash it into the telephone pole, is insured. So there's a form that I would send you to send to your insurance agent. This is the email saying don't buy it yet. I don't think so. And then, so then there's maybe a big length of time, but so this all happens, you sign your grant, you get an email from us. Oh no, so this is the one saying it's fully signed, we've attached your final copy, this is it for your records, you can now buy it. And then it has some instructions of what to do next, which are buy it and use it. Once you've bought your equipment and you have that paperwork in hand, you go buy your equipment. What you send us is you send us your invoice and you send us some photos of it on your farm. So look, I've got it, here it is. And then we look at your invoice and we'll send you a check for 90% up to your grant agreement. Again, this might be where you're talking to us if the cost was super increased. And yeah, we aim for within a month getting that payment back to you. Some farms, like we cannot really upfront costs. So some farms have ended up doing kind of like a short-term loan to cover the full cost of the equipment or work something out with their dealer. But yeah, if it's really a rush, let us know, it's really a rush, try to get us this money back. And we do kind of acknowledge that. And then you're reporting for 3 years at the end of the year. If anyone's signed up for FAP, it looks a lot like that. Maps and a list of the fields you used it on. And then you are obligated to keep using the equipment for 2 more years after you're done reporting. So for a total of 5 years, you're not supposed to sell the equipment because we just bought it for you and we don't want you making money off it. And then we will probably come out and check on it and ask you some questions about how it's working for you. If you have precision ag as part of it, we do ask that you send us the output so we know you're using it to your full capacity and not just enjoying seeing the pretty pictures as you drive around. Yeah, so this is what the report looks like. And again, we try to make it pretty straightforward, but the reason we ask you to report is because all of the acres you use this equipment on is going towards the accounting for the state of farmers are doing so much towards water quality, and that's been allowed. This program and FAP and the NRCS's programs have been able to show so far really significant contributions from ag and water qualities. But this is how we do it, and we'll map we enter all your fields into a map. So that's why we report. And again, we will be looking at your reports and comparing them back to your performance measures. And if you're not meeting them, having conversations with you about that. The worst case scenario in all of the CEAP program, just full caveat, is that if for whatever reason, you sold your equipment year 2, or you're doing 0 acres the whole time or whatever, the worst case scenario is we'd ask for the money back. We have not yet fully done that, except in a couple of situations where, people were willing to because they were going out of business and really needed to offload the equipment. So not yet, but that's what we tell people, try to follow the rules. And that's all. So I'm Sonia again. You probably get emails from me semi-frequently for FAP or CEAP. If not, get on my email list and then you will. And Nina over there has run this program in the past as well. So any questions? Yeah, am I way over? I may be way over. Okay.
I know in past applications, there was a question about if you were going to share the equipment with somebody else.
Yeah.
Is that still there, and is that encouraged? And if I say I'm not going to share it, but then I end up sharing it, how does that matter?
Good, that is a great question. And the question was about sharing equipment. Sharing is encouraged. We support that. Generally speaking, we like sharing. If you weren't planning on sharing and you do share, great. If you were planning on sharing and don't share, we'll wonder why you didn't choose to do that. At the end of the day, yeah, we've also supported, so as custom operators have been kind of considered more highly because they're getting on more farms. Some farms have worked with their districts to put applications in. Do you all run some CEAP equipment at this point here, or UVM does? Yeah, so UVM has some equipment that we helped buy because that's being used on multiple properties. We've had like small farms band together because they say, hey, this maybe doesn't make sense for one of us to have because it's really high cost equipment, but if 5 of us will all use it, then it makes more sense. So we've done that. Yeah, sharing is good. Also, like at the end of the day, but you know, if you're having trouble meeting your acres on your land, we have seen people say, oh, I'll let my neighbor borrow it. I'll just report his acres too. And that works great for us. We love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Has there been much interest in yield monitors?
We've bought a couple each year, and I think we're definitely looking to purchase some more this year. Yeah. I'd say Scott Magnan's also been super helpful with precision ag and helping people like understand the outputs and, you know, export it and get into their nutrient management plans. And I don't know what the situation is with him now, but I think he for a while was helping people do that without charging them. But so yeah.
Can you explain what a useful letter of support would look like?
I think I might have gotten some from you all in the past. It basically looks like,
Was that good?
yeah, the districts do a great job. I'd say we get all kinds of letter support. It's like, you know, this farm's been doing a great job, or this, but we can see a lot of room for improvement in this farm, but they're committed to using this piece of equipment. Or we get some from the neighbors, like, hey, you know, I'm looking forward to my neighbor having a manure injector so I can spend more time on my lawn. And we're like, okay, that's great. You know, like I think we get all kinds. Or, you know, if someone's if you think your neighbor might borrow yours, maybe get the neighbor to say, yeah, I'm really interested in borrowing this piece of equipment. I don't want to purchase it myself. All kinds of things. Have we gotten letters of support from you, Kent? I think we might have. Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes you get the like NRCS planners who NRCS, you know, is working on a bigger system for a farm. And so then your NRCS planner might write you a letter saying, we couldn't buy the grain drill, but once they get the grain drill, we're really excited to fund cover cropping on this farm. You know, we get all kinds, but I'd say generally just like not someone who you're buying it from. Yeah. You are supposed to not be actively in legal battle with the Agency of Agriculture to apply for this program. So in short, yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Maybe VH. Oh yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, just okay. So the letter of support matter, you kind of want it short, right to the point, or the long letter better, the more impact?
It's an optional inclusion. I'd say the length is probably not super significant.
The other concern was if I have to make a loan purchase of equipment, like cash flows that you said it used to be, and you have troubles getting one. That situation, purchase it before I get paid.
Yeah.
It's in the back of the mind.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I do know in the past we've like farmers have reached out to us to say like, hey, can you send a copy of my agreement to the loan officer so they know that this is coming? You know, can you put the loan officer on all my emails that you send me so that they like know where I am in the process? But yeah, I'm sorry, I can't really help more than that, but that we have done that in the past. Is like try to like show a little more to the loan. let them know, like, hey, there's, there's $30,000 coming for this guy. Like,
Just went to a dealer.
Okay, hey folks, my name is Betsy McGavisk. I am the program coordinator with the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board's Farm and Forest Viability Program. And I have lost my voice a little bit, so I am going to try to project. And if you've spoken to me within the last year and it sounds like my voice is deeper, it's because it is for the next few days. And I'll be heading out today around noon, but I'll have my contact information at the end. If you have any questions, definitely please feel free to reach out to me. So what I'm going to cover today, just a little bit more about our program. We have a water quality grants program that does help fund equipment purchases, but then we also do business advising. So I'll touch on that. And yeah, then dive into our water quality grants program. So VHCB, as an organization, it's very big, or it seems big to me, does a lot of things. We are a quasi-governmental agency, but we're still technically a nonprofit. It's like a bunch of legalese, but we were created in the 80s to help promote both conservation and housing, affordable housing goals in the state. And so our program, the Farm and Forest Viability Program, sits kind of within the conservation program as a way to promote working lands in Vermont. And so our biggest area of work is our business advising. And so every year, probably 60 or 70 farms in the state enroll through us to be a part of a 2-year business planning program. VHCB sets folks up with advisors through NOFA, Intervale, Center for Agricultural Economy, Land for Good, UVM. I might be missing some. And through that program, takes about 2 years. People work on developing a business plan, working on financials, and then we also offer transfer and succession planning too. And so in a lot of those cases, we bring in other TA professionals to do legal support and things like that. And then also through that program, once you've completed either 1 year or 2 years, worked on a business plan, a transfer plan, we have a small grant program called our implementation grants to implement some part of that business plan. And those are up to $10,000. We've used them for equipment before, but that's a much narrower pool and usually a narrower scope. Other areas of work through the Farm and Forest Viability Program is our forest landowner advising. So similarly to our business planning work, we set up private forest landowners with an advisor to support succession planning there. We also have a program called READY, the Rural Economic Development Initiative. And there we work with municipalities, and we've also worked with farms and small businesses and nonprofits to link people up with a grant writer to apply to big federal grants. And that is only available though in towns of less than 5,000 people. It's one of our newer programs. I'm happy to try and answer questions about that, but otherwise I will pass you off to my colleague that does more work on that. And then finally, that brings us to our water quality grants. And so our water quality grants are up to $40,000, also on a reimbursement basis. Our program gives out fewer awards for equipment than CEAP per year. We do require a 1-to-1 match. And farms that are grossing over 15 a year and are required to comply with RAPs are eligible to apply. We don't have that requirement that you have to be in good legal standing with the state. If you're not and are actively working on it, we're able to still fund projects. And we're also not limited to just equipment. So I'll go more into that, but you can see that we have a bigger spread of projects. And so we fund projects that are on farm, have long-lasting impacts, that have direct and positive improvements on water quality on the farm. And so we do primarily fund farms. In the past, we have funded one custom operator and the Poultney Meadowy Valley Conservation District to buy a piece of equipment. If you are either of those that are interested in applying, maybe just reach out before doing that, just so we can give you the okay and get a good sense of things. So Last year, we were able to make about 19 awards at about $600,000 in total. We are expecting the same amount of funding this year. We do require a one-to-one match, and so that can be from in-kind labor, which is less relevant to equipment purchases, but it can also be from farm cash and other grants. So if you're applying to CEAP, in a lot of instances, we're able to provide that 10% match requirement. So CEAP covers 90%, VHCB can cover that last 10%. We have one round a year applications. We're expecting to open this November. They'll be due in mid to end of January with decisions out in March or April. Yeah.
And also the larger pieces of like the higher cost, you can fund right up to 50% of the cost.
Yes,
So we can
yes,
put up to
absolutely.
that. So we do see some like bigger projects go through the dual funding.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So it doesn't have to be just that last 10%. It can be anything as long as it's one-to-one. And so here's like a breakdown of the way we funded projects over the last 4 years since we've started running the program. And so as you can see, we've primarily funded like manure management infrastructure, so relining manure pits, covered barnyards, things like that. But then about a third of all of that has been equipment. And so here you can see kind of the breakdown of that. And these aren't like requirements or quotas we're trying to hit. This is just kind of an example of how we have funded things over the last few years. So similar to as Sonia talked about, same kind of no-till equipment, balers, precision ag and fertilizer, manure trucks, manure spreaders, and manure pumps. And so again, our timeline, applications will be released in November. We do have an online application on our website that will be live in November. I have some examples here from last year if anybody's interested in taking a look at them. We do have some required attachments with that. So we have this online application similar to the questionnaire that CEAP requires. We also ask for financial statements. So that includes a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow projection. And then additionally, we have some optional things that folks can submit. So a map, photos, we do require quotes for equipment. So same kind of deal. And also letter of support, optional, but it often really helps applications. And once an award is made, we also make payments on a reimbursement basis. So you would email your invoice to me, and then we would process things. And a purchase can happen anytime after the application deadline. So I guess that's the difference between us and CEAP, is that if our application was due in November, you bought this piece of equipment in December. Oh, I'm sorry. If the application was due in January, you bought the equipment in February, but didn't know about your award status until March. Like that's an absolute gamble that you could choose to take. But you would still be eligible for reimbursement if you ended up getting that award. So I think that's a pretty basic overview of the program. I'm happy to talk more about like what specifically within applications will help them or strengthen them. Yeah, does anybody have any questions off the bat? Yeah. Can you say that again?
I noticed you're supporting forests.
Yeah.
So what kind of program or equipment are you?
Yeah. So our water quality grants I don't think we've ever funded, we've maybe gotten requests for like some type of maple operation equipment, but for the most part, we generally don't fund those. And so our water quality grants aren't as closely linked with our forest programming. But the Farm and Forest Viability Program provides business advising for forest products businesses. So maple can be included in that, as well as sawmill, timber, anything like that. And then we do forest landowner succession planning. So if you have a large tract of forested land, haven't really figured out what is going to happen to that piece of land over the next 50 years, we can set you up with an advisor to figure out what needs to happen there. What do you want to do with that land? What does your family want to do with that land? And figure out some of the legal processes around that. And in terms of grants, I would say our implementation grant, if you own a sawmill, you go through our business planning process. At the end of that, you'd be eligible for an up to a $10,000 grant through our implementation grant program. Does that answer the question? If that is what you've determined in your business plan is something you want to do, generally it's you already have kind of like a sawmill business established, and then you work with an advisor to figure out where you want to take that business in the next few years. If there is some smaller piece of equipment, sometimes we do like marketing support or things like that. That would be for our implementation grant program. So that's different than what I've mostly been talking about, which is our water quality grant program. Yeah. Generally, our funds are a bit more flexible than state debt funds. So I don't think this comes up as often in CEAP, but I know with like BMP or NRCS equip, if for whatever reason they can't fund certain pieces of your project, I know like end walls on a barnyard sometimes can't be covered by equip. VHCB doesn't really have that regulation, and we can come in and fill that gap. We can't fund farmer labor or employee labor, but all of that can count towards the one-to-one in-kind match. Yeah.
Wants to apply, but he doesn't have all of those financial statements done up yet. So there's support through VHCB to get those prepared, like just for the purposes of applying.
We have a lot of resources and guides on our site through our business planning program. I'd be happy to share any of those. And often, you know, we do take applications and it's like, oh, you're missing a few financial pieces. Like, what's up? Like, here's some support trying to get those. But we do like to see them. Again, part of our work is the viability program. We like to see the health of a business. Either to see that, like, yes, it makes sense with our limited dollars that we are supporting you, and that we feel pretty good about it this equipment being used over the next few years. Oh, and then on the piece of reporting, we generally do not require any reporting once the invoices is submitted and when we pay things off. I might check in with you over the next year and say, hey, can we come check things out? Can we do a site visit? But that's generally as far as we go in terms of reporting. Sometimes I'll ask for performance measures, but it's not a requirement of the program. Yeah, thank you so much. I have an email sign up back there. So if you would like to join that and get the updates when the application is released. We're also anticipating during the application timeline to have a few info sessions. So if anybody is applying or is working with anybody applying and wants some help navigating that, yeah, definitely reach out. And we're in a similar position as CEAP. We're still waiting to hear about whether or not we will require EINs. We are hoping, huh? Oh, what did I say? UEIs, thank you. And we're cautiously optimistic that we won't. But I guess, yeah, TBD in a few weeks on that piece.
If you determine that you need UEIs, you could extend deadlines.
Yeah.
That would be great. Just knowing that how long that process takes. Right, the actual was here, but like, yeah, that takes a while.
Great. Well, thanks, y'all.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Tom Akin. I'm in the Colchester office for NRCS. And we talked just a little bit today about some of the new stuff that's going to be available through our EQIP program in 2023. EQIP is the Environmental Qualities Incentive Program. It's our largest financial assistance program. We usually receive about $8 million every year, and we can fund hard infrastructure such as waste storage facilities, irrigation systems, bedded packs, fencing, things like that. We can't fund mobile equipment. However, we can fund the management of the equipment, and just going to go over some of the things that are new in this coming year. In 2023, we're going to be the ability to fund through our nutrient management program, the ability to pay for urease inhibitors or nitrification inhibitors to improve your nitrogen management. If that's a part of your nutrient management program that you're working with your crop advisor, or if you're doing the nutrient management plan yourself, we can assist you with, it's a per acre payment. We don't have the exact rates yet. This one we believe is going to be somewhere in the $40 to $50 range. And this one, which is a little higher level of management, is probably going to be in the $50 to $60 range for squeezing more efficiency out of your fertilizer program. So that could include split applications of fertilizer for your cropping season. It could include slow release formulations of fertilizer, testing throughout the season, such as the pre-sidrous nitrate test, along with the nitrification inhibitors. The PSNT is a test that's taken when corn is approximately 6 to 12 inches tall. After that test is taken, you can pretty much determine whether or not your corn needs additional nitrogen to get to full yield potential, or whether you can save money by not applying extra nitrogen at side dressing. And then at an end of season test, which is the corn stalk nitrate test, you take, after harvest, you take the bottom 6 inches of corn stalk to have that analyzed for nitrate, just to see how well you did in your nitrogen program over the course of the growing season. So these are all options available through the nutrient management conservation practice. And once again, that's on a per acre basis. A new practice that we're going to be offering in 2023 is we're going to help farmers pay for limestone on their farms. This is a new practice which we hope it's going to be really popular. Limestone is one of those, it's the cheapest fertilizer you can buy because it helps raise the soil pH and makes other nutrients more available. The payment rates for this, once again, it's on going to be on a per acre basis. If you need, based on your soil test results, if you need less than 2 tons per acre, it'll be $23 an acre, or if you need more than 2 tons per acre, it'll be approximately $40 per acre. Now, we realize that doesn't cover all of the costs of applying 2 tons to the acre, but we're hoping that it will be enough of an incentive to induce farmers to think about looking at their soil pHs a little more closely, and like going back to your high school chemistry class, the reason we want that soil pH to be in that neutral range of 6 to 7 is because that's where the nutrient availability is the greatest for all of our plant nutrients. And you have to keep in mind that if the nutrients in the soil are not soluble, if they're not soluble in water, they can't get into the plant. So as the pH drops, as the pH gets closer to like the 5s, your phosphorus becomes less mobile. Your calcium becomes a lot less mobile, as well as magnesium. And then the things that are the heavy metals, which the plant doesn't need all that much of, become more soluble and can actually lead to toxicity. And this is just a slide from Penn State showing what happens to barley plants. This would be the same for wheat or any corn, oats. The vigor of the root system just goes way, way, way down as the pH is dropping. So this is as I said, this is the first year that we're going to be offering the liming practice in 2023. And another practice that we're going to be offering is a practice for helping farmers transition cropland to grazing land. This is to essentially seed down cropland with forages that can be grazed over the course of the growing season. We can pay for either early season seedings or that summer slump season where pastures are not producing at their cool season grasses are not producing at their greatest potential. So we can pay for seed mixes like this that you would see from like King's Agri-Seed, or these cover crop cocktails, which can be grazed to provide additional forage for livestock. And just one last thing, our programs for USDA and in particularly EQIP, one of the requirements is that the customer has a conservation plan on file with the Conservation District or NRCS. Farmers can submit an application through EQIP for the EQIP program anytime through their field offices. We work in conjunction with the Farm Service Agency, so customers have to be registered with Farm Service Agency. They have to have a farm number and have track numbers associated with the property. The land that the farmers are farming has to be also eligible, which is essentially just cropland that has no previous wetland violations. And our ranking deadlines, because we have our programs can be applied for at any time, we usually rank and make awards several times over the course of the season. And I believe our first ranking deadline for this year is going to be in a couple of weeks. I think that end of October will be the first cutoff for ranking of applications. But you can get more information on any of our programs for EQIP or other Farm Bill programs such as the Conservation Stewardship Program or that EQIP CIC, which is kind of like a bridge program to CSP. You can get any of that information either from, you can contact me or folks at your local NRCS office. And that's all I have.
Deadline is November 8th.
November 18th.
And this is the last, so I don't know if people know about Farm Bill eligibility, but this is the last year of funding under the 2018 Farm Bill. So if some farms are worried about hitting their cap on funding, and so this is the last year to get under the last cap, and then next year it'll reset, and you'll have over 5 years another 450,000 potentially available to you. So it's a good year to get in if you haven't hit your cap this year.
That's a great point. The funding is, it is taxable. It does go on your Schedule F. But for most of it, it is considered a business investment and a write-off. So, yes, as Sonia said, this is a really good year to level up to your $450,000 cap if you haven't. And we will have, like I said, we will have a lot of money this year. We're probably going to be over $8 million. Yes.
Let's say I'm a farmer and I want to switch to no-till, and I get Sonia to buy me a no-till drill. Can I then enroll those acres in NRCS too as no-till as a practice? And get
Yes.
paid for that?
Yep, that's where we pay for the management, and the folks at Agency of Ag can pay for the infrastructure, the equipment. Same thing with, say, for example, if you wanted to do manure injection through Agency of Ag, that nutrient management practice would be, that would be on top of whatever you receive for the from the state, because we're helping pay for your time and labor to do a new practice. The additional amount of time and effort that you put into modifying your management or updating your management, your labor is kind of factored into that per acre incentive payment. So same thing with cover crops. We pay for the seed and the time and effort that goes into seeding it. So, yes, sir.
Okay, so I wasn't aware of the nitrate testing options.
Yeah.
And so I represent a nonprofit organization. We have an award to increase testing and working with farms with like a dozen farms. And we're trying to bring new information from practices that have been done on the lake. We went before the Lake Champlain Basin Program TAC Committee, and we had been planning to work strictly on phosphorus. They've asked us to add a nitrogen testing component.
Yeah.
And I don't have enough money to do it. So they told me to go to other sources for funding. Is EQIP, is this something I should look at?
So this is something that,
especially if I'm going to be doing it for multiple planters.
so the landowner would be eligible for that payment. Unless, are you managing the land or are they managing the land?
The farmer manages their land.
Farmer manages the land. So then they would have to apply for EQIP for that nutrient management practice. But they could apply for those technical aspects, that prescription nutrient efficiency option.
So when I survey farms, I should ask them if they are working with EQIP,
Yeah.
could they add this to what they're doing?
Would they?
Would
Yes.
they be willing to share the information?
Right.
That's the
And
way
you
I've
could
got it
you
going.
could actually, so these things cost a little bit of money, and if your organization is interested in either providing the services, for example, just taking the tests, or collecting the
Well, that's
tests.
just it. I mean, I didn't write that in my application, and the TAC committee is asking me to add all these things on. And oh, by the way, we're not going to increase your award. You're going to have to look elsewhere for it. So I'm looking for another pocket. So
Yeah.
And you need money to pay, are you looking at the water quality, the water nitrogen levels, or are you looking
I've been asked to look at the water, yes, at the water, but then I want to relate it to the soil, the soil practice.
Now, what we're trying to get at with this is just to give you an example. I just recently came to Vermont from Massachusetts. I was having a conversation with a Massachusetts dairy farmer that I used to work with. He put on over 200 units of nitrogen on top of his manure because the fertilizer dealer told him to. And so unless you're getting, like 30 tons plus to the acre or 300 bushels to the acre, that nitrogen is just either going off as nitrous oxide or it's leaching as nitrate into the groundwater. It's not, the corn crop is not going to use 200 units additional nitrogen on top of that manure. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get farmers to realize that, hey, I'm taking these tests mid-season to see where we are. I don't need that 200 units of nitrogen. Maybe I only need 25 or 50 units of nitrogen. And then you follow it up at the end of the season to verify. So as I said, the payment rate for that is higher because there's more management involved, there's more risk involved. But what we're hoping is that nitrogen is going to be even more expensive next year than it was this year. So we think it's a real good opportunity for farmers to save some money and to also do some good for the environment. Yes.
So I'm a farmer who wants to switch to no-till. I want Sonia to buy my drill.
Yep.
But I don't hear back from her until March, February, and I can't buy it until I have my executed application. If I wanted to get into the EQIP for next year, do I have to say that I'm going to do no-till and get my application in before November 18th and then cancel it if I don't get the no-till drill from Sonia?
Yeah,
Okay.
that or change it to a different practice, such as like minimum till or something that you can do.
Just, thinking about timing with all of these different programs,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what to
A
do. Okay.
no-till payment is not a huge amount of money, but I think it's like $30 an acre for the management of it. But yeah, if you're signing up for no-till, we're expecting that you have the equipment to actually do it.
I'd say another option, so the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, we have the Field Agronomic Practices FAP program. It's like EQIP in some cases, but it's much more limited. We don't do nitrogen anything. It's like cover crop, no-till, manure injection is what we pay for, and we always pay less than NRCS. And the reason for that is we want it to be clear that, like, if you're going to go anywhere, go get federal dollars first, and it will be advantageous for you, right? Like unilaterally. That said, our program tends to be like apply 30 days before you do it, and then once you do it, we'll pay you. It's a little bit more straightforward. It's a little more linear. So you could also, get your drill. If you get your drill, apply to FAP, have us pay for it for 1 year, and then next year, start getting into NRCS.
Not getting ahead of myself, I'm confusing everyone. If I do all that and then I want to go to paper phosphorus,
Yes, you can.
we just keep adding
It's
all that money.
Yes.
Okay.
And basically, the way I consider it is layering up, right? You have first, in order to do anything, you need the equipment, right? So that's the first step. We can pick that. Once you have the equipment, you also need to use it well, and increase adoption across your plans. So NRCS can help you do that. The state can help you do that. And then, one level up is like thinking about where on your farm you're doing it, and like layering it with other practices and trying to think about your performance of that practice. And that's, I think, where paper phosphorus comes in, is that you've got an NMP, you're following it, you're layering practices on top of each other, and then the paper phosphorus has like an additional payment for you being so intentional about that management.
If you need a nutrient management plan, we can help pay for that too. We can also help pay for forest management plans. And those forest management plans could then call out practices that you could use, that you do on your forest land, like thinning or wildlife cuts or something like that. But if you have, like any questions about any aspects of the conservation plan for your land, please just check with the district or your local NRCS office, and they can point you in the right direction.
Can you speak a little bit more to the forest practices that you guys do have if it meets your plan?
Yeah.
If your plan tells you to do it, what could I do?
So like invasives, we could help with invasive control, trails and landings for thinning operations. We can actually provide financial assistance for the thinning if it's called out by your forest management plan. We can also help pay for what are called patch cuts, or they're usually 2 to 5 acres in size for wildlife benefit. For example, forest birds that benefit from that type of new forest growth, early successional growth. Pruning to some extent, if you're, like if you're pruning stands of pines. I would say those could also help for planting, replanting. I'd say those would probably be the biggest ones for forestry. But paying for the plan is a big part of that. That you essentially get a consulting forester out onto your property to give you a management, not only an appraisal, but then also the recommendations for management going forward. And then if you don't have any issues, then you can sign up for the conservation stewardship program. And yeah, you get paid to do for what you're already doing. Okay, all right, thank you.